is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
African Union secures close to 300 million COVID-19 vaccine doses, the largest such agreement yet for Africa. The UN warns of a humanitarian crisis in Madagascar amid drought and COVID-19 pandemic. And a look at rising insecurity in Beni region of eastern DR Congo. Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe. Joining me with the business headlines is Uche.
Thanks, Peninah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Egypt's newly appointed lawmakers focus on reviving the economy. And South Africa's strict COVID-19 rules are choking its hospitality sector. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it is back to you, Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. We begin with some positive news, where the African Union has secured almost 300 million COVID-19 vaccine doses for the continent. Many African nations struggle with limited logistical and financial resources. The move to secure vaccines is seen as a step towards starting the complex task of inoculating its population of 1.2 billion. According to Ahmed Ogwal Ouma, the Deputy Director of the Africa CDC, the current chair of the AU and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to issue more details on the vaccine later today. Meanwhile, South Africa has closed its land borders until the 15th of February due to concerns surrounding the increase in COVID-19 cases. The surge appears to be due to a variant of the virus identified in South Africa. This comes as travel restrictions in the United Kingdom continue, banning South African citizens from direct entry. The restrictions extended to several other countries in the region. They're already in effect and will remain in place for at least 2 weeks. CGTN Sulis and Jamela has more on that story.
The move aims to prevent the South African variant of the coronavirus from spreading to the United Kingdom. The UK government has extended the ban to those who have travelled from or through any Southern African country, including Namibia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Eswatini, Zambia, Malawi, Lesotho, Mozambique, Angola, Seychelles and Mauritius. Recently, South African authorities confirmed that a new, faster-spreading variant of the virus had been detected here and is driving the second wave of the pandemic. Britain is among the countries worst hit by COVID-19. In a statement, the British government says it is responding swiftly to new evidence showing an urgent need to halt travel from all Southern African countries. This in a bid to help prevent the spread of the new COVID-19 variant identified here in South Africa. The UK had previously temporarily banned entry of passengers arriving from South Africa from December 24 last year. An aviation analyst says that while the steps taken are necessary, they are a major blow to many airlines.
If you look at the Virgin Atlantic, British Airways, those are the most affected airlines that are going to be having to transfer the passengers from their own airline to the different airlines like your KLM, Air France. And those are the ones that are mainly affected. And obviously, their cargo as well. It's been a serious blow for them, and therefore they are going to be experiencing quite a lot of losses as far as revenue is concerned.
Mujapili says while these travel bans are well-intentioned and are in place to curb the spread of the virus, they might not be entirely effective.
I think the British government, they have jumped the gun because they do not have a total control of the influx of the people that are coming out of South Africa. You can get into UK as long as you don't have a direct ticket coming out of South Africa. You can go to France and get to the UK via the train. You can get to Amsterdam, Netherlands, and get into the UK.
The travel ban does not include British and Irish nationals, longer-term visa holders, and permanent residents. The British government also announced that the measures will be in place initially for 2 weeks and will be continuously reviewed. The South African Tourism Department says while the ban has adversely affected business and tourism travel, it was always expected, not only as a result of the second wave of the pandemic here, but also due to restrictions in other countries. Yolisa Njomela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A 10-member expert team led by the World Health Organization is set to arrive in China on Thursday to investigate the potential origins of the coronavirus. The WHO says it also aims to learn lessons that can help better prepare the world for future health crises.
We're pleased that an international team of scientists, distinguished experts from 10 institutions and countries are commencing their travel to China to engage in and review scientific research with their Chinese counterparts on the origins of the virus. I want to thank all GORN partners and the countries supporting this mission. This is important not just for COVID-19, but for the future of global health security and to manage emerging disease threats with pandemic potential.
The WHO adds that the investigation will be focused on conducting crucial scientific research and should not be caught up in the politics over the origins of COVID-19.
Let this mission and let other missions be about the science, not about the politics. We are looking for the answers here that may save us in future, not culprits and not people to blame.
In Madagascar, severe malnutrition rates continue to worsen due to droughts and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The World Food Programme said children have been forced to beg in order to supplement their families' food rations. WFP warned that a looming humanitarian crisis could leave a third of the population struggling to put food on the table. CGTN's Joy Kiruki reports.
The situation in southern Madagascar, triggered by a 3-year-long drought. Many, like Ikemba, have been forced to trek for miles in search of food and water.
We still have some of these leaves. When I can't go begging in the neighboring village, we have to dig under this sand without being sure to find anything. Yesterday and today, I couldn't go because I feel very weak. When we don't find anything under the sand, we drink the seawater. It is bad for our health, but we have no choice because otherwise we would have nothing in our tummy.
The COVID-19 pandemic has brought about a sharp recession. Many are forced to sit by and wait for food donations. Donations are sometimes far between.
We are so poor that we have nothing to eat because of the drought. There's nothing we can do.
According to the World Food Programme, children are the worst affected. Many have dropped out of school to beg for food. WFP is currently providing food assistance to nearly 500,000 people in the 9 hardest hit districts in the south.
The number of severely food insecure as well as severely acute malnourished children is increasing as we speak. We need funding and we need resources for the World Food Programme to be able to augment the response and the capacities down in the Grand Sud of Madagascar.
A plea for assistance that is hoped will ease the dire situation in South Madagascar. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
Earlier, we spoke to Jean-Luc Ciblot, who is currently serving as the country director of the World Food Programme in Madagascar. He gave us a brief idea on what the situation has been in the southern part of the country since the last harvesting season in 2020.
The harvest of 2020 has been extremely poor compared to previous years. And then following the harvest, which take place, the main harvest is taking place in April, May. This harvest has been followed by basically 1 year of drought. And in Madagascar, this is probably one of the worst drought over the last 10 years, which has brought the people from April, May to October, November with very few food reserves. And that's why we see today a population of 1.3 million with classified as extremely vulnerable. Out of them, 300,000 are classified in emergency phase, lacking food, water, etc. And compared to the previous years, there has been no rain for basically 1 year, at the exception of one rain sometime in December. The consequence of it is that the planting season has been extremely reduced. And right now, what we can see, what has been planted in December is extremely vulnerable. And the support that we have is not enough today to provide support to the people. We are witnessing, this is the first time we are witnessing migration from the small villages towards the urban centers, because these people don't have any food stock anymore, neither they have exhausted totally their coping mechanism, and they are totally exhausted.
More than 100 people have reportedly been killed in renewed ethnic attacks in the restive area of Metakel in Ethiopia's western Benishangul Gumuz region. The attacks are said to have been carried out on Monday and Tuesday. For more on this, let's cross live to CGTN's Girum Chala. He's standing by for us in Addis Ababa. Girum, what more details can you give us on this?
Well, Peninah, so far the Ethiopian officials have said nothing about this incident, but as you've said, several number of people have been killed today, and some reports suggest that 5 p.m. local time, at least 27 bodies have been recovered from different parts, scattered, killed, more particularly by spears. The attackers, according to eyewitnesses, have used spears to stage their attacks and kill these people. Now that there are so many people who are not accounted for, the number of people who have been killed by these attacks may increase. So these gruesome attacks have been going on for a long time, and today we have seen and heard yet another one, and this time around the number of people, as I said earlier, could increase, but really a sad story is coming out from the western part of Ethiopia yet again.
All right, Girum, thank you for that update. Girum Chala live in Addis Ababa. You're watching AfricaLive. Let's take a quick break. Coming up, Uganda gears up for a presidential election on Thursday. And a look at rising insecurity in Beni region of eastern DR Congo.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Syria,
Juba, Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
Let's head over to the Democratic Republic of Congo. A civil society organization released a report stating that as many as 1,200 people have been killed by militia in the eastern territory of Beni since 2019. CGTN's Chris Chamringa tells us more.
This report by Lucha came on the same day that another attack, was carried out in Beni territory, an area known as Mwenda. One soldier was killed and 3 others were injured. And the Congolese government forces said, they were pursuing the rebels and discovered a mass grave of 50 civilians and an area known as Lose Lose. And that is, is a very big number of people. So people in Beni territory have been dying on almost a daily basis, and they've been calling on the government to do much more, to end this fighting. It's still not very clear what, the reason of this attack was, but according to a security analyst I spoke to, he said that, the Congolese government troops started carrying out a large-scale military offensive against the Allied Democratic Forces at the end in October 2019. And ever since that offensive happened, killings against civilians have increased across Beni territory. They're saying one reason is that, some of the civilians in that area have been collaborating with the government troops, revealing the hideout of these rebels, and so the rebels have been going out to kill the people, and the killings are very brutal. There have been international monitoring organizations that say the Allied Democratic Forces, which is known as the ADF, is one of the notorious groups. They kill people with machetes, burn homes, and carry out very brutal killings. So people in that area are really helpless. Last year there was a very large protest against the United Nations peacekeeping mission, whose mandate is to protect civilians. People in Beni were complaining that the UN has more sophisticated weapons and better logistics, to help protect them against these attacks, and they were very disappointed. I spoke to the spokesperson of MONUSCO here in Kinshasa, and he said that the nature of these attacks by the Allied Democratic Forces is very complex. These are people who are farmers by day, and then they become rebels at night. They're people who live within the communities, so it's very difficult to distinguish them from fighters. It's not a conventional war, and so they need the support of the local communities and the government forces to be able to protect civilians.
The U.S. House of Representatives is debating and voting today on a Trump impeachment resolution. It comes after an earlier resolution formally calling on Vice President Mike Pence to remove Trump by invoking the 25th Amendment. Pence rejected the move. In a letter released by the White House, Pence said he didn't believe the action was in the best interest of the country. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had told Pence last week that lawmakers would begin impeachment proceedings if he does not move against the president. Tonight, House Democrats are making good on that promise. Here's a look back at presidential impeachments in U.S. history. Only 3 presidents have been impeached in America's nearly 250-year history: Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. In 1868, Andrew Johnson was impeached for breaching the Tenure of Office Act, a law intended to limit presidential power to remove federal appointees from office. The Senate narrowly acquitted him by 1 vote. Bill Clinton was impeached in 1998 over accusations of obstruction of justice and perjury. He was also acquitted by the Senate. President Trump is said to be the first president to be impeached twice. He was impeached by the House of Representatives in December 2019 over accusations of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. He was acquitted by the Senate. This time around, he is accused of inciting violence by encouraging his supporters to storm the U.S. Capitol. Several senior officials from the Trump administration have decided to resign in the wake of the Capitol Hill riots. Acting Secretary of Homeland Security Chad Wolf notified his staff on Monday that he would be stepping down in light of recent events. Others include Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, who blamed Trump's rhetoric for inciting the violence, and Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, who said the violence troubled her in a way she couldn't ignore. The list goes on. Trump's Deputy National Security Advisor, Matt Pottinger, his special envoy to Northern Ireland, and the chairman of the White House Council of Economic Advisors. The White House press team also lost their social secretary and deputy press secretary. The chief of staff for First Lady Melania Trump has also stepped down. In Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni has called on members of the public to come out and vote ahead of Thursday's election. Museveni, while addressing the nation on Tuesday, assured voters of their safety and warned anyone against rigging the election. Museveni, one of Africa's longest-serving leaders, is pitted against opposition frontrunner Bobi Wine for the presidency. The campaign period was marred with crackdowns on opposition rallies. Authorities defended their actions, saying the rallies were breaking COVID-19 regulations on large gatherings. Rights groups, on the other hand, have termed the restrictions as a pretext to muzzle the opposition.
I call upon all registered voters to come out and vote. There have been practices of intimidation where especially the opposition people have been threatening people not to come out and vote. In some areas, they have even attacked peaceful citizens. I held a meeting with the security forces. They are ready to defend you. Therefore, don't fear anything. Come out and vote.
Meanwhile, Ugandans have been leaving the capital city Kampala ahead of the Thursday election. Many have expressed fears of possible violence.
Yeah, according to the past elections, we've always had chaos within Kampala, around Kampala. And I think this time, with a lot of pressure that we have right now, there might be a lot of violence after. And this time around, we hope there might be change. We hope.
But since this campaign is everyone is worried.
Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has threatened to ban Facebook after it pulled down more than 100 accounts belonging to supporters of his ruling National Resistance Party. In a statement, the tech giant said the accounts were being used to influence the outcome of Thursday's presidential election. This comes days after Facebook shut down US President Donald Trump's account in response to messages condoning the violence that took place on Capitol Hill. Peninah Karibe reports from Kampala.
Dickens Okello can't access his Facebook account anymore. The blogger has been involved in a campaign to promote Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni on social media. His account is among those that were shut down by Facebook after being accused of misleading public debate about Uganda's elections. There are concerns that some of the campaign pictures they have been posting on social media are from the 2011 elections.
I've seen some of the accusations. They say that we are using pictures of 2011, bringing in as the current situation, which me, myself, I've never used it and it has never happened. But still, people who are using the opposition hashtag, we are removing a dictator, they are also using very old pictures and they have not taken any single action. They unfairly took action only against the pro-government people.
The social media accounts affected belong to PR firms, private news outlets, networks within the Ministry of Information and individuals which had been coordinating online campaigns for the government or the National Resistance Party. There's been a blowback on social media about the suspension of accounts of supporters of the government, with many saying they've not been given a fair hearing. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni warns he won't tolerate unfair actions by Facebook.
I told our people to warn, if you want to take sides against the NRM, then that group would not operate in Uganda.
A Ugandan government spokesperson says the move by Facebook to permanently close pro-government accounts is malicious.
We can only conclude that it must have been an election mischief in an attempt to subvert or to influence the ongoing election in the direction that is against the government.
Last week, several major social media firms suspended US President Donald Trump's accounts, with Twitter saying he risks inciting more violence after his supporters stormed into the US Congress. In Uganda, the government is now calling on tech giants to take down online channels owned by opposition groups, accusing them of inciting violence. The government says the opposition played a role in the shutdown of its social media accounts, which the opposition denies. Ahead of the January 14th election, tension is growing in Uganda, with the government restricting the use of social media. President Museveni's supporters, whose accounts have now been blocked, say they've lost their ability to try to persuade voters just days before the election. Peninah Karibe, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Leaders from the economic community of West African states have expressed confidence in Mali returning to official civilian rule. ECOWAS has been mediating in Mali's transitional period since the ouster of former President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. Top ECOWAS mediator and former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan visited the country this week. He was expected to meet with political and civil society figures. His visit comes as the country awaits constitutional reform and national elections to be held. After Keïta's overthrow in August, ECOWAS stepped in and levied trade and financial embargoes on Mali. These were later withdrawn after the army handed over power to a civilian interim government meant to rule for 18 months before democratic elections.
We believe that the transitional government will be able to conclude everything they are set out to do within the 18 months. And he did mention that they are committed to conducting elections before the end of the 18 months. For now, we have no reason to doubt that.
Somalia is planning to go to the polls later this month to elect members of the Senate and Parliament. Meanwhile, women who have been left behind in the electoral process are pushing for greater representation in government. CGTN's Abdulaziz Bilu has more now from Mogadishu.
Demonstrations and opposition leaders. As per a deal reached in the capital Mogadishu last September, polling venues will be located in only 2 districts for each regional state. Election for lawmakers from the Benadir and Somaliland regions will both take place in the capital, Mogadishu. In the past week, women rights groups, politicians and prominent businesswomen have joined ranks in urging the country's leadership to guarantee a 30% quota in the next parliament. In a meeting with the Prime Minister, a section of female lawmakers called for assurances that slots for women representatives in Parliament and the Senate will not be affected.
We have met the Prime Minister and asked for assurance as we head to the polls. For women, an assurance for a 30% quota in the next Parliament. We want women given a seat in each constituency with 3 representatives.
Last year, lawmakers unanimously approved a major legislation allowing for a 30% representation in the upcoming federal, a major victory for women in Somalia. Senate elections is expected to kick off later this month in some regions of the country. Activists now want polls for some women representatives to be conducted fast in order to avoid competition from male candidates. Women currently hold 24% of seats in Parliament.
Our biggest concern as women is how to preserve the 24% houses of Parliament. We are optimistic and hope to get more than 30% if things go as planned. But we have doubts since the electoral process is not yet clear.
The Electoral Commission has also been urged to ensure that only female candidates can register in elective seats set aside for women. Some advocates want at least 1 female candidate elected in every 3 seats granted to each clan or constituency. The international community has also weighed in, urging authorities to respect and implement the 30% quota for women agreed by leaders. For years, Somali women have played a critical role in ending conflict. But despite their positive contributions, they continue to be left behind in decision-making process. However, this year, women in Somalia say they are determined to have their voices heard. Abdulaziz Bilu, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Local authorities in eastern China's Shan province have held a press briefing on the latest rescue efforts in a gold mine explosion. Say the blast happened in Chixia on Sunday afternoon. 22 workers have been trapped underground for more than 80 hours already. It is very them as the blast has damaged the communication system. Over 300 rescuers have been deployed at the site. Our reporter Huang Yue has more.
According to local authorities, a relative personnel of the management of the company that owns the gold mine have been under control and further invest away. You know, the gold mine is owned by Shandong Wucailong Investment Company. The explosion actually happened at 2 p.m. on Sunday. However, the company hadn't reported the accident to the local emergency management bureau until 8 p.m. on Monday. That's 30 hours delay in reporting. So local authorities said the company tried to conduct the rescue operation by itself at first, but it underestimated the difficulties. Rescuers have kept clearing obstacles in the shafts, and a drill pipe has been placed at a depth of over 360 meters to ventilate the mine and blow away noxious gases and smoke. And as of 5 p.m. today, carbon monoxide concentration, oxygen concentration, and temperature above the depth of 310 meters in the shaft are normal. One of the engineers also told us at the press conference that it's very, very difficult to clear the obstacles inside the shafts, and these obstacles have blocked the way for rescuers to get downside to risk. You know, it's been over 72 hours since an explosion tore through the gold mine here, and a total of 22 miners are still trapped underground.
You're watching Africa Live. Time now to catch up with the day's business news, and Uche joins us with the latest.
Thanks, Peninah. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. Egypt's newly appointed lawmakers focus on reviving the economy. And South Africa's strict COVID-19 rules are choking its hospitality sector.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's start off in Egypt. The country's newly elected lawmakers have been sworn in to begin a 5-year term with key legislations aimed at reviving its economy. Now, as CGTN's Yasser Hakim reports from Cairo, new laws on e-commerce and amendments to the value-added tax will be top of the agenda for the incoming legislators.
The newly elected Egyptian lawmakers are set to begin discussions on the economic and business legislations that will help raise revenue and cushion the economy. The draft laws that have attracted most attention are tax-related. Two controversial laws, namely the real estate tax on factories and the value-added tax, will also need the lawmakers' approval.
An amendment is to be introduced in the real estate tax, which exempts the tax on empty land in the factories. There is also a tax exemption period that still runs till June 2021 that was necessitated by the outbreak of the coronavirus, and it might be extended till the end of December 2021. For the VAT, it focuses on imposing the tax from the source. So when the consumer pays for a product with his card, the VAT will be deducted and transferred directly to the tax authority and not to the seller first.
New taxes are also expected to be imposed on e-commerce and online advertisements. No details have been released, but Ahmed El-Zayed, whose company works in the high-tech and artificial intelligence industry, hopes it would benefit the sector.
We believe that the new rules, which include applying taxes on technology companies, will regulate the market and limit the shadow economy, and at the same, will organize this expanding market. Taxes will provide funding to improve the infrastructure for the tech industry, the 5G technology, and new projects such as smart cities. What's more important is how to apply the taxes with transparency, because one of the toughest problems we face in Egypt is to apply the tax laws fairly and firmly.
Meanwhile, the business community is casting an eye on the House, hoping for legislations that would ease doing business in the country.
Since we have just concluded a successful reform program that has upgraded our economy and infrastructure, we should get ready to take a share from the huge direct foreign investments which will flourish post-COVID-19. We must prepare the suitable legislation for investors. Our main priority is eliminating bureaucracy from our system.
We need to revisit the tariffs and laws and need more facilities to import and export. We need the e-commerce to be regulated with clear laws so that it can attract more foreign companies to invest in the sector in Egypt. I expect the newly sworn-in parliament will improve the business climate so that Egypt becomes a top destination for technology.
To speed up the economic development plans, the government is already pushing the Assembly to ratify some of these business-related laws as soon as possible. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And staying in Egypt, the country has reopened its airspace to Qatari flights. According to officials, a Qatar Airways plane is due to land in Cairo this Friday. This, of course, will be the first commercial flight between the two countries since Egypt joined Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain in a boycott of Qatar in 2017. Now, Egypt and its Gulf allies imposed the embargo on Qatar over allegations that it supports Islamic extremists and keeps close ties to Iran. Doha has denied those allegations, but after 3 years of severed diplomatic and economic ties, the four boycotting nations signed a declaration with Qatar at an annual summit last week in order to end that dispute. Let's move on now. A pandemic-induced slowdown in global chocolate demand has led to a pileup of about 100,000 tons of beans per producer. Now, as CGTN's Wanja Mungai reports, farmers in Cote d'Ivoire are now selling their beans below the guaranteed farm gate prices so as to reduce stocks which are piling up in their farm warehouses.
With few shipments leaving the world's top cocoa producer, unwanted stockpile are adding to a growing store of beans at ports. It's estimated that about 100,000 tons of beans are stuck at farms and cooperatives. That's roughly 1/3 of Cote d'Ivoire's monthly output at this time of the year. Cocoa arrivals at Cote d'Ivoire's two main ports from October 1st to December 27 were down 3.3% compared with the same period a year ago.
I'm scared now. I don't know if the price will go down because the buyers are not buying from us. I'm scared that my cocoa will remain in my hands since I can't find any other solution.
The delays are being felt keenly by farmers and traders who are struggling to sell their beans at the fixed minimum of 1,000 Central African francs. That's about $2 per kilogram.
We have problems selling our cocoa. We have problems because the buyers that come here say they can't pay us 1,000 CFA francs and sell it back to the Lebanese buyers at 1,000 CFA francs per kilo. It's not profitable for us, so we try to find ways to sell it in town.
The real problem today is cash. We have problems with farmers and weighing at the farm because they refuse to give sales deposits. But given that we have cash problems on the field, you will find a lot of cocoa with farmers. Even at the store, it's more or less the same thing. People go to the factory, but the unloading is very difficult. Yesterday I sent 2 trailers, and today those trailers are still over there and they have not been unloaded.
Leading chocolate makers agreed to a proposal from the African nations in 2019 to charge the industry a premium for cocoa beans and guarantee a minimum income to farmers who earn just $1 a day. The scheme, however, which came into effect last October, was based on expectations that international cocoa prices would stay within average ranges. Instead, the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on demand has driven them to their lowest in nearly 2 years, and they are expected to stay weak for at least until the end of the year. Wanjamungai, CGTN.
Well, let's turn to other commodities now. In Zimbabwe, the country is focusing on growing its battered manufacturing sector in 2021, and that's as output from the agricultural sector rises. Now, the government's economic blueprint plans to support the production and the processing of crops such as cotton, soya beans, and livestock hides, amongst others. From Harare, here's CGTN's Farai Makutia.
Samuneti Leather makes handbags, belts and wallets using cattle, goat, ostrich, elephant and crocodile hides. Because its products are meant to last at least 20 years, a consistent stock of quality raw materials as well as linkages with suppliers are crucial.
We have annual general meetings within the sector where we check ourselves to see who is producing, at what level are they producing, and where demand is more, the manufacturers can easily hint in advance to say, I think we'll be having so much demand next year. Could you also increase your production at the production level of at the farming level of these exotic skins?
They start off as individual strips, bits and pieces before they are all put together to become the product available in different shops all over the world. It's this sort of cohesion that government wants to see in key sectors of the economy, where the different stages of production are brought together to work cohesively to improve efficiency, increase production, and achieve economic growth. Zimbabwe's National Development Strategy aims to fortify linkages between industry and the mainstay agricultural sector, which were disrupted after the land reform program and subsequent economic deterioration. The strategy seeks to transform the economy from primary production by encouraging investment in value addition, which should also lead to import substitution and export promotion. It's targeting an average 5% GDP growth per annum.
And in 2025, the anticipation that the agricultural sector as an economy should be $80.2 billion, right? The mining sector as an economy in 2025 should be $12 billion economy, right? Then the manufacturing sector as an economy should be $80 billion. So these are kind of indicative sizes of the economies which are coming on the back of strengthening of value chains.
Samuneti has taken a hit due to the COVID-19 pandemic and is operating at just 20% of capacity. It's hopeful that a rebound in tourism, as well as the government's thrust towards production, will help it ramp up activity to previous levels before the end of the year. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
And let's head to South Africa now. The country will not be going to a higher COVID-19 lockdown level. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the adjusted level 3 lockdown will continue. Now, while some in the country have welcomed the move, those in the restaurant industry are pleading for leniency, as CGTN's Shonela Lupuana now explores.
Speaking to the country in a televised address on January 11th, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that South Africa's level 3 restrictions would remain in place.
The hours of curfew will now start at 9 p.m. and end earlier at 5 a.m. It remains compulsory for all of us, every person in our country, to wear a mask in a public space. Since New Year's Day, we have recorded nearly 190,000 new coronavirus infections. The country has recorded more than 4,600 COVID-19 deaths so far this year.
Some have welcomed the decision to remain at level 3 lockdown. For one sector, however, it could be its death knell. Being unable to serve alcohol and having to close by 9 p.m., restaurant owners and workers in South Africa are torn between the necessity to combat the pandemic and the need to sustain their own livelihoods.
Now things are bad for me just because of the first lockdown. So even if he can announce again for another lockdown, things will be worse.
It's already impacted business a lot with even it being level 3. But it's not something that we look forward to. It means a lot of job loss in the hospitality industry. We won't even know where we stand with our shop here at Parkhurst. So it's quite scary.
Since the lockdown was imposed last year, thousands have lost their jobs. Restaurant owners and associations across Africa's most industrialized economy have been pleading for leniency since the start of the outbreak.
We still have hope things are going to change, although it all depends on how people handle themselves and how people are taking this whole COVID thing. Because the reason why we have a hard lockdown is because of the numbers that are surging every day. So that will mean people will lose jobs either, everyone, including me. Yeah, that will be sad news.
South Africa has seen over 1.2 million confirmed cases since the virus arrived in March last year. That's the most on the African continent. The country is also battling with a new coronavirus variant which began in December. The new variant is different from the new strain that scientists have been studying in the UK. Both the new South African and the UK variant appear to be more contagious. Shonela Lupuana, CGTN.
Well, that's all for now on AfricaLive Biz. But coming up on Global Business Africa, we'll be looking at how the IMF's $487 million fund can help Angola kickstart its economy. All that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. You're watching Africa Live, still ahead. Hundreds of dead fish wash up on Lake Victoria shores.
Join us in global business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qatar, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Hundreds of dead fish have washed up ashore at Uganda's Lake Victoria without a clear cause. Fishermen in the area are worried the reason behind the mysterious deaths could also affect their livelihoods, as well as the safety of children that swim in the water. Let's take a look.
This is not an unusual sight for fishermen on Lake Victoria. Uganda's Ministry of Agriculture says a lack of oxygen is possibly the reason for the tons of dead fish. A ministry statement says recent storms on the lakes could have caused mixing of different waters, reducing the oxygen levels in Lake Victoria as a result. However, residents in the area say the death rate this time round is much higher than in the past.
Some people say the lake froze at the bottom, which is causing the fish to freeze to death. Most of us don't know why. Some people eat them and nothing happens to them. We tell them it could be poisonous. But it does not appear to be so, because if it were poisonous, they would be dead by now.
We have faced a lot of difficulty. I'm a fishmonger. I fish. I have boats and I also do wholesale. The problem we are currently facing is the dying fish. We are in a panic. We do not know why Nile perch are dying, yet all of the other fish are not dying. A lot of the Nile perch have died.
Experts have a different theory on the incident. They say years of pollution are now threatening the lake as well as the lives of those who reside in the area.
Lake Victoria, to begin with, faces a lot of stressors emanating from waste that comes from industries, that comes from settlements, but also poison or chemicals that come from the farms, especially agrochemicals, but also chemicals that also come from the industries. We have also had watershed degradation around Lake Victoria. All these stressors are affecting the lake. They are also affecting the over 3 million livelihoods that depend on this resource.
The lake has become very polluted. That may also be one of the causes. Our children swim in the water sometimes. Mostly the young ones go swimming without their parents' knowledge. Now we fear that the water they swim in is what is killing the fish, and we don't know the cause. We do not know how hard it's going to become and where we will end up.
Yet, what remains puzzling is that the Nile perch is the only species being affected by the phenomenon, leading the Ministry of Agriculture to rule out poisoning. Further investigations are being carried out into the definitive reason behind the deaths. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
And ahead in sports, South African striker Dino Ndlovu relishing life in China League One side Zhejiang Greentown.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.